Hey friends, welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, and this week I'm traveling, so I thought it would be a fantastic time to cover a question that I get quite often. It's a question that a lot of people who have been doing podcasting a while ask me, and that is it time to end my podcast? So if this is you, if you have been feeling like maybe it's time to wrap things up or take a break, then, my friend, this episode is for you. So maybe it's time to end your podcast. Maybe it's time just to take a pause or pivot into something new. We're going to talk about all of it today, so let's dive in. Okay, first let me just address something right off the bat. I'm not in my usual studio in my home office. Actually recording an Airbnb in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours from where I live. And I'm here with my friend and teammate, Karen Wolf, and we're actually planning out content, podcast episodes, and lots of other fun things that is coming to the podcast and Wildfire in 2025. So if the audio is a little off, that's why. All right, let's get to it. So, you've been thinking about ending your podcast. Why? Maybe you're not seeing the downloads or the consumption rate that you're supposed to see. Maybe you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, whatever the case may be. It's totally 100% normal for you to feel this way, especially if you've been doing it for any length of time. Now, let's first talk about the signs that maybe it is time to end. Like I said, maybe you're feeling unsure about the analytics. Maybe you're burned out. Don't worry, I get it. I have actually been there myself with the first podcast, Creative Cast. I understand that feeling, and it is 100% normal, so don't feel like you're weird or any of that kind of stuff. But let's talk about some things on should you actually end your show? What should you do? But the one thing I want to mention from the very beginning is this. If you, my friend, are basing this thought on analytics, stop. Now, I say that with all the love in my heart because I know some of my favorite Enneagram 2s and other numbers will be thinking differently. I hear from clients all the time about, well, my downloads just suck. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares. I'm not making any progress. First, let me just say this. As I say many times in the show, many times in person, many times in coaching, downloads are a vanity metric. They are not giving you any real hard data from it. So unless you're seeking out a sponsor, which I don't believe that you probably are, then don't worry about the downloads necessarily. And the thing is here, many of us as Christian podcasters are doing shows because of the calling that God has placed upon their lives. Now, I'm not 100% sure because I don't have a direct hotline, but I'm pretty sure the Lord is focused on the impact that we are creating, not our download numbers, not the audience size, and definitely not the consumption rates. So let's talk about burnout and exhaustion. So if podcasting has become more of a burden than a blessing, it might be time to consider stepping back. And if every episode feels like a climbing Mount Everest and your energy is completely drained, that's a red flag. And podcasting in general should bring you joy and fulfillment, not constant stress. I get that feeling of being overwhelmed and stressed out and exhausted and all the things. And I was trying to juggle too many things. And I would venture to guess that you probably are too. In that moment, it was really clear to me that I needed to pause and recharge and take things back to basics. So I encourage you to do the same. Maybe if you're sitting out there going, my message doesn't align with what I'm talking about. It's not my current passion, or I feel like God is leading me into a different area. That's okay too. We all grow and change, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to stay stuck in the things that make us feel comfortable. We're supposed to stretch our wings and take big leaps and step out in faith. And I want you to remember that. And if, as you're thinking about all of this, and not overthinking, but true thinking, because I know sometimes we can overthink and convince ourselves of other things. As we're thinking about things, if you're finding that your heart just isn't in it anymore, or that God is calling you to something relatively different, or maybe it's even completely different, it might be time to gracefully close the chapter. Now, this is exactly where I kind of was last year. If you've been listening to the podcast recently, you know that I took an 8-month break. And because I was going through a very, very difficult time within my family, it was not easy. And I knew that I had to stop. I didn't know if the podcast was going to come back. I had to protect my sanity. I had to do some things to protect my family and business as well. But 8 months later, God was real clear on, you're bringing back the podcast and this is what you're going to do. So I made that switch and I stepped into that calling. For those out there that maybe, and maybe this is you and maybe it isn't, but don't look at closing down your podcast or ending your podcast as something permanent, and definitely don't think that it's failure, because it's not. It just means that that season of your life is over, or at least paused. And usually it's God saying, hey, I've got something new in store for you. Like I said, if this is you, I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to remember that it's perfectly okay to end it, especially if it's no longer serving you and maybe your audience. Like I said, God is probably leading you into something else. Now, a lot of times when I talk to clients and we talk about ending a podcast, after some reflection and some conversation, clients realize, I don't really want to end it. I just need to take a break. So hitting pause is one of those things that allows you to step back, pray about it, see what God has in store for you. You can reset things. You can walk away from it. You can give it some time, and then you can come back with a fresh mind, clear eyes. One of my good friends, who is a podcaster, is doing this right now. She needed to have a surgery, and she also needed to have something taken off her plate. So her podcast is on pause. And once she recovers and life is a little bit more in control, then she'll be back. If you're feeling exhausted, but you're still passionate about it, you still want to do it, you just don't have any time or don't feel like you can do it the way that you want to do it, take a break. Come back stronger. Like I said, a little time away can do wonders for your creativity, your energy levels, all the things. But consider taking a month off to rest. At least a month. Don't think about it. Don't look at it. Don't talk about it. Nothing. Pray about it. Ask God for His guidance. Come back with fresh ideas and a renewed vision. Now, one of the best things that I can tell you, and I tell clients this all the time, and sometimes they think, well, that's not really helpful, but it's to pray. Ask Him, is this the end of it, or is this a season of rest? He will tell you. It may not be as quickly as you want. It may not be an auditory, maybe something you feel within your spirit. However He speaks to you, He will tell you. We just have to stop long enough for us to listen. There's something about finding clarity in prayer. And sometimes God calls us to rest to prepare us for the next thing, because He knows that we can't do the next thing while we're currently doing this thing. The other thing is maybe it's time to pivot. And pivoting your podcast can be a powerful move when God is calling you to something new. Sometimes we outgrow our original message or audience, and that's perfectly normal. Maybe your podcast started as a hobby, but maybe now the Lord is saying, okay, you've mastered this part, let me call you to something more important. Or maybe you started with one particular niche, and over time you feel led to explore new topics or new themes. I help clients rebrand and rename their podcasts all the time. I did it myself. When I pivoted from my own content focused on high-level podcasting and not really focusing on a true specific niche, and I went over to, I decided I'm going to create podcast content for the Christian women podcaster. And I'll admit, it was a big step. It was a scary step into, oh boy, this is pretty specific. But what it did do is it opened doors to new opportunity and growth. The one thing I do want you to do is listen to your audience. Your audience will give you clues about the content that you're talking about, and they will know if you're phoning it in. I guarantee it. And if you are phoning it in, then you need to look at ending, pausing, or pivoting. Ask them what they want to hear about. They will tell you. Do a survey. We were just working on that just last night. There'll be a survey coming out in a week or so, specifically asking, what do you want to hear on the podcast? So pay attention to the feedback that you get. Your audience will help you guide your pivot. They're going to tell you what they like. They're going to tell you what they don't like. And you can ask them specifically, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? And it's going to be the information that you're going to get is going to be really good. If you're consistently hearing that your listeners are interested in a specific area, I think it's really something that you need to explore along with the guidance of the Lord. So can I tell you it's time to end your podcast? No, I can't. That is 100% your decision. I'm just here to kind of guide you and give you the feedback on that. So maybe it is. Maybe it's time to take a break or a pause, or maybe it's time to pivot. Your audience will tell you that, your heart will tell you that, and the Lord will tell you that. But whatever the case, don't rush the decision. Pray over it. Seek wise counsel and trust that the Lord is going to lead you in the right direction. If you have more questions about possibly ending, pausing, pivoting, whatever the case may be, or maybe you have another question about something else, please reach out to me. I would love to pray with you and help you work through this decision. So in the meantime, check out other episodes that we have on the podcast. We have over 110 different episodes over on the podcast, so I would love for you to check it out. If you want more tips on podcasting tips and tricks, we got you covered. You can sign up for our 52 tips email, wildfirecreativecompany.com, and sign up. And every Tuesday, you will get a practical tip delivered to your inbox to help you along in your podcasting journey. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. It's time to get back to work. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in each week. And thank you for sharing your feedback with me. I truly appreciate it. So until next time, keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep sharing your message with purpose and trust Him with the next step. Have a great week, friend. I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye, y'all.